The journey we're taking is the journey within you. Everybody has their own story and their own journey to share. Every journey conceals another journey within its lines. The path not taken and the forgotten angle. Listen to the stories from others sharing their triumphs and struggles that led them to where they are today. Welcome to the journey within you. Today, I am so pleased and just blessed is all I can say to have Jen Z on with me today. And I met her through a virtual conference, The Unstoppable. And I knew when I heard her story that I would just be honored to have her come share her story on my podcast. And so I reached out and she said yes. So Jen, I am so happy to have you here today. And I would just love for you to tell us your story. How did you get from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm so honored and also very blessed. So thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
So I have an interesting story in the spring, kind of kicks off in the spring of 2018 when I was living with my husband and my family in Charleston, South Carolina, and received a phone call from my previous employer in Miami asking if I would consider moving my family back to Miami for a job opportunity that was truly like my dream job for like over a decade. And so we made the decision to put the house up on the market and do it. And so we obviously packed up everything that we own, got in the moving truck, heading down to Miami to start our new life. Everything happened really quickly. And about halfway through the journey, my husband at the time turned to me and asked if he thought we should get a divorce.
Oh my goodness.
So obviously, you know, as anyone who's been through anything like that, it was a very, very challenging time for me. I was very much at the time in the mindset of like, you know, now, you know, we don't have a house. We were planning on couch surfing with friends for a couple of weeks actually while we were going to find our new home. As you know, everything that we owned was in boxes. My son at the time, 3 years old, and I was literally starting my new job the following day. And in my ex-husband's defense, you know, I have to always say this because I'm so grateful to him that he had the strength and the courage and the bravery to ask, because in his mind, he was like, you know, look, everything we own is already in boxes. We don't have that new house yet. You know, if we do this and we do it well, our son won't know any different. And we were unhappy for many years. So I always like to make sure that that's clear. But
that's good. Yeah. It's still like, earth shattering.
But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it was nothing to do with the fact that it wasn't the right choice. It was just the timing, you know, and it was so hard for me because it just all happened so quickly, like I said. And so what happened was, you know, we got through it. We ended up finding condos where there was like a north division and the south division kind of divided by a road. And so that was nice. We were able to keep everything nice and close. But I'll tell you what, when I got into my new little apartment and found myself in a situation I hadn't been in as long as I could remember, where I was completely alone with myself. You know, I always say, you know, I went literally from being a full-time mom, full-time wife, a full-time career woman to the evenings that my ex-husband had my son, I was completely alone and I was so lost. And I just remember I would just sit there and I would stare at the walls and I'd think, who am I?
What am I doing? Yeah.
Yeah. And what do I do now?
What was your career at that time?
So I was in the cruise industry at the time, working for a company that did a lot of the magazines and video production on board for all the various lines. And the job that I had gone for was to oversee their operations so that I would be groomed to take over as general manager. And general manager was like a job, you know, like I remember when I started with that organization in 2009, I was literally entry-level position. And I remember walking into the president's office and going, well, I'm going to have this office someday. You know, like it was a vision board goal.
Yeah.
You know, like So it was a legit dream come true opportunity for me. And the idea was if I had learned, I had a lot of experience in the sales and marketing side of the business
Mm-hmm.
and the training. So this was grooming me to learn more about the operations and financial side of the business so that I could take over, you know?
Nice. Yeah. But then how
So
do you get excited about that with this bombshell on you?
right, right.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, it was the only thing that I really had at the time that I was holding on to. But the interesting thing is, when I was in that space, and it was really, really hard for me. I remember, like my closest friends and family, I have an amazing support system. I'm very blessed.
That's good.
And a lot of the advice, though, that I was getting at the time was 100% from a place of love, but it was very much so band-aid your pain, go
Mm,
out there, go out with your girlfriends, go to the movies, get on the dating apps, go out, work harder, throw yourself into
mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
like do anything
And that
but
just
sit in your,
buries it. Yeah, you
right?
don't meet it where it is, that's for sure.
Correct. Yeah. And something in me just kept saying, that's not right, though. It's not right because I shouldn't feel so lost. I shouldn't be unrecognizable to myself in the mirror. I shouldn't not know what brings me joy.
Mm,
And going out and pretending that this isn't happening isn't going to help me
mm-mm.
long term, right? Like,
Right.
I needed to figure out who I was, and I needed to figure out how I was going to rebuild my life. And I had no idea where to start, and it was all very, very, very overwhelming for me.
Mm,
So anyway, so then one day I get a delivery, and it is some flowers and some chocolates and a letter.
mm,
And the letter said, "Hey girl, I know you're going through a really hard time right now. I just wanted to swing back from the future to tell you everything's going to be just fine. You
mm,
are so much stronger than you're giving yourself credit for. There's a light at at the end of this tunnel, and just hang in there because the future is so bright. Love,
mm,
future Jen."
mm. That gives me chills. That just gives me
Right?
chills.
Can you imagine? Like, can you imagine? And I just was like blown away. I had no sent it to me. And of course, at the time, I was posting it all over social media. I was telling
Mm-hmm.
everybody,
Mm-hmm.
was it you? I was calling all my friends, was it you? Was it you? Was it you? And nobody was saying, fessing up to it. And it just blew me away. So then imagine my surprise when the following week I get another one. And this time it was so adorable. It was a large wine glass and it had my nickname Gen Z
Oh.
inscribed in it. And it was like a super large one.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, "Hey, girl, I know it's been a tough week. Fill this up, put your feet up, and relax. Everything's going to be just fine. I'll come back and check in on you again soon. Love, future Jen."
Mm.
So this happened for 5 weeks in a row.
No way.
And amazing, right? And so by the time, and this is where the miracle happened. It was around week 3. And I remember the letter saying something about do something today that brings you joy.
Mm.
And
Mm.
a couple things happened in that moment. One was, I think it was the repetition of receiving these letters and the fact that
Real.
they just resonated with me in a way that
Mm-hmm.
nothing else could because it really felt like it was coming from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what if she's right? Like, what if future Jen is right? And I do have this amazing future ahead that I have so much to look forward to, and that I'm going to rebuild my life in a way that I never imagined. What does that even look like? And then at the same time going, well, she's telling me to do something that said, reconnect with joy, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't even know
What that
what,
is.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so that night I said to myself, you know what? If I'm going to be this person that future Jen says I'm going to be, I got to figure out how I'm going to get there. And it has to start with figuring out how I'm going to, become a more joyous
Mm-hmm.
person. And I need to start asking myself the hard questions. And I've really come to realize in my life that the quality of our lives is based on the quality of our questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started asking myself the harder questions. I knew I needed to figure out who I was. I knew that was the big question.
Mm-hmm.
But I started with, how joyous am I? And I said, and I started rating myself. And I said, okay, well, on a scale from 1 to 10, if 10 is exuberant and never been happier in my life, and 1 is clinically depressed,
Mm.
where am I? And I just remember writing down a 2.
Mm.
Thought, okay,
I
all
got
right.
some work to do.
So I got some work to do. Yeah. And so what I decided to do is I got a little cheap little pocketbook from Walgreens, and it was basically my joy journal. And I said to myself, I'm going to carry this in my purse. And anytime anything brings you joy, just write it down and then look at it every night and look at it every morning and just
Mm.
make yourself promise every day that whatever is you wrote down the day before, you will do more of those things the following day.
Mm.
And it started with, I love Starbucks. I'm not going to lie. And
Hey.
so it started with like, hey, I love my morning Starbucks. And
Mm-hmm.
so with like Starbucks written down. And then it was literally the next day, I'm at work and I'm in the lunchroom and a work colleague grabs me. There's some salsa music playing in the lunchroom and he grabs me and he starts dancing with me.
Oh,
And because I used to work on cruise ships, they had a lot of dancers on board.
yeah.
And I remember, we used to have a lot of fun dancing and I'm terrible at it, but I still do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, so I immediately wrote it down, went back to my office, opened up my purse, wrote it down, salsa dancing. Okay. Went home that night, started Googling dance instructors, and
Oh
I found
gosh.
an amazing gentleman who agreed to come to my house every Monday night, because Monday was one of the nights that I didn't have my son, my
Mm-hmm.
husband, and my ex-son. And every Monday night he came to my house and he taught me, he gave me lessons in my kitchen. And I chose my kitchen because when I had a real breakdown after the divorce, when I was all alone and I had, literally
Mm-hmm.
fell to the ground in the fetal position, crying, just
Mm.
weeping,
Mm.
I thought, well, if that's where I fell, that's where I will rise. And that was a
Beautiful.
big thing for me. So I did that for a year and I had an amazing time. And then about a week later, after signing up for the dance lessons, I'm out for brunch with a girlfriend and she says, oh, you're never going to believe what I did. I signed up for a Spartan. And I'm like, well, what's that?
Mm.
And she said, oh, it's this really cool thing where you run for a little bit and then you stop and you do these crazy hard obstacles. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like I just started doing this where I was assessing myself in all the 6 key areas of life. I started with joy and then I really started to dive in on, okay, family and relationship fulfillment, career and
Mm-hmm.
work and spiritual wellness, financial independence and security. I really looked at all the key areas, and health and vitality was one of them. And at the time, I was about 70 plus pounds overweight.
Mm.
I was very unhealthy. I struggled to move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My son was very active, and I could not keep up with him. And I just remember thinking, this is one of the areas I really want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew with every fiber of my being that I hated working out.
Oh yes.
So I was like, okay, well, so how am I going to do this? But I do love a good problem solving opportunity and overcoming obstacles. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, if I could get my mindset around the fact that this is a way to bring in problem solving into the equation and overcoming obstacles from an empowerment mindset standpoint, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
only run for a little bit and you stop. So bonus, right?
Right,
So
right.
I went home that night and I started researching Spartan. And I decided to sign up for one in Asheville, North Carolina, because I live in Florida and it's really flat here.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna throw in some Blue Ridge Mountains
That's the
because I'm
mountains, girl.
right. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, we're doing this.
Oh my
So I got
gosh.
myself a ticket and I had my goal and I started training very hard for that for about 7 months. And so, so in the meantime, I'm just adding more things to my joy journal. I'm doing more things that are making me feel fulfilled and joyous. I'm happier. I'm starting to smile more. I've got more vibrancy
Mm.
in inside and outside. Like I'm just starting to blossom. And it was about, well, and literally, and so maybe 11 and a half, 12 months after I got the final fifth Future You letter,
Mm-hmm.
gift, I received a call saying that they wanted to promote me to general manager. And it was basically 2 years ahead of schedule.
Wow.
And yeah. And so I'm moving into the corner office. And I, again, because I've got such an amazing support system, I was getting a lot of flowers that day, and it was just a wonderful day for me. And
Mm.
um, and at one point I look up and there's a gentleman, a delivery man, and he's knocking on the door, and he's got a bonsai tree in his hands. And I said, okay, yeah, you can place it over here on the desk. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I look down and the note
Mm.
says, I told you so. Love, future Jen.
Oh my goodness. That's just, oh,
And
did you just cry? Did you stand there and
yeah,
cry?
I mean, I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I also was flooded with a vision. And I just stood there in amazement because here I thought my transformation journey was over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that instant, I knew it was just starting
Just
because I
beginning.
knew, yeah, I knew I had to share this with the world. I just knew it. And I knew that at some point, not then, but at some point, I was going to leave and start this company,
Mm-hmm.
For You Project. And I went home that night. And I remember sitting at my kitchen table, and it was like I just couldn't stop writing. And I
Oh.
was just writing all of the times in a person's life when we could use something like this,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
use words of encouragement and hope from our future self. And I thought about friends of mine who were battling breast cancer. And I thought about, loss of loved ones and loss of pets. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things just came flooding to me. I remembered my own infertility struggle. I had that for
Mm-hmm.
years. Wow, can you imagine if future Jen came to me during those hours,
Oh.
you know, telling me, it just, even miracles take a little time, hang in
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking about the good stuff too, right? Because I really don't think we take time enough to celebrate one another or ourselves,
Right.
and to just
Right.
pause and just take in the good stuff
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So that, but how cool would it be if you just got engaged and you receive a box of goodies and a letter from your future self,
Mm-hmm.
just reminding you, enjoy the day, enjoy the process. You're going to be beautiful. You're going to be surrounded by all who love you, all these things. And promotions, obviously, and birthdays. So anyway, before I knew it, I had over 30 themes
Oh
and
my
milestones.
goodness.
I
That's
event
awesome.
on this list, and I just became obsessed with it. And every spare hour and minute and second that I had, I was researching, how do I curate these boxes? Where do I find the products?
Mm.
Uh, what would the logo look like? What's the company mission and values? And I just started building a company. I started building the vision,
Mm.
and I spent about a year doing that. And and then it got to the point where we launched the website to friends and family at the end of 2019.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And then once you launched your site, I mean, it just basically took off, didn't it?
Yeah. So, of course, it's the end of 2019. And in
Oh,
March of
and
2020, we
then
all know it,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So, yeah, it was crazy because we were like, okay. So I ended up finding out who sent these to me all along, because
Did you?
yes, the day that I got the bonsai tree, there was a packing slip in the box,
Mm-mm.
and it had her name on it. Her name was Christy, and beautiful soul from Canada, who
Oh,
couldn't be there with me physically and wanted to show her support in a
mm.
very unique, outstanding way. And so that
Powerful.
day, when I had that vision, I just picked up the phone. I'm like, girl, we got to share this with the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so she was really, really, really instrumental in helping me build this. And so anyway, so when we launched it, we wanted to just test with friends and family first, and just make sure that the whole personalization process and all the things were
Mm-hmm.
working smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, we're in a pandemic,
Mm.
and um, media started getting a hold of it. And honestly, thankfully, only like smaller news stations, local news stations, and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
because I was literally working out of my garage.
Mm.
I was
You
doing
were
it
packing
all.
the boxes yourself.
I was
Yeah, doing
packing
it
the
all.
boxes. I was getting up at 3 in the morning. I was doing all the things,
Mm.
and but the whole world was in transition, and everybody needed it. And so I just became extremely overwhelmed with, and finally was forced to make the decision, like, am I going all in with this, or
Right.
what?
Right.
Obviously, it was a no-brainer. I went all in, and
Yeah.
it's just been an incredible journey ever since.
Mm. And so that pandemic was kind of a blessing in disguise for you
Yeah.
because, everybody's at home and everybody
Yeah.
needs something like that to lift them
Yeah.
up. So, I mean, I can imagine how that just took off. Um,
I'll tell you though, the greatest blessing for me during that time was being able to witness love in action.
that is
Because
so
I will tell
beautiful.
you, when the news was going crazy, spotlighting all the hate and spotlighting all the problems and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
spotlighting the darkness, right? I was in this little planet of mine where all I was seeing was people loving on each other hard
Oh, yeah.
and good, and I could see the ripple effect because I could see if somebody heard me on a local, North Carolina
Mm-hmm.
station or
Mm-hmm.
something, and they're buying a box for their friend who lives in California, I could see that the person who received the box understood how powerful this was
Mm-hmm.
and knew somebody in Arizona who
That
needed
needed
it for a
it.
completely different
Mm-hmm.
reason. And I could see it, I could track it, and I was blown away.
Oh,
It
gosh.
was, and I'll tell you, and at the time, because I still had my full-time corporate job, and we were in cruise. So, while everybody thinks, will it shut down, the cruise industry shut down, I'll tell you on the back end, it did not.
Mm.
And there was a lot of work that had to go into closing down that operation and getting the crew members home safely all over the
Mm.
world when shutting down airports and all the
Mm-hmm.
crazy things were
Mm-hmm.
happening. I had a big responsibility at the time in my corporate world to get these people that I cared about home
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all the things. And so I had a lot, and I didn't sleep for months.
Mm-mm.
Um but it was so incredibly powerful and so beautiful to witness. It
Oh, yeah.
it re- yeah.
I could see that, the ripple effect, and you can see it just going from place to place. That would just be so exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
your work is out there, and people are knowing the purpose behind it, and what it means to them. And I love all
Yeah.
the different occasions that you have. I mean, every thought is there. And
Yeah.
I like the celebrations of the wins, and then, the sad times that so many are going through things, just to open that box and know that these things have been specifically picked for them. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful. Absolutely
Thank,
beautiful.
thank you. And now we've even extended even more, so when I started writing down the vision and really working out the plan,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the nature of who I am, I had a robust 5-year plan,
Oh,
because
awesome.
I had so many visions coming to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I knew that like the boxes were the inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
The boxes were what helped me believe in myself again. The
Mm.
boxes, were the spark.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to do some work, you know?
Mm.
And I had to really, once I started diving into these 6 key areas of life, and I had to decide who did I want to be, how did I want to show up, where did I want to rank in these
Mm-hmm.
areas,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of work went into transforming my life. And so the passion I have also for the people and the resources and the information that I received at that time, and the coaching and all of the things
Mm-hmm.
to help me do that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that was a big part of it too, because for me it's so important that that Future You project encompasses all of the programs, the gifts, and the resources that help people get inspired, stay inspired, and inspire others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now in the last year, we've really been working hard on building out the programs too. So we've got the Future You community, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got, some cool private workshops. Obviously, you saw I do the talks,
Mm-hmm.
the inspiration talks. We just got some cool stuff coming out on that end too. So
Yeah, I was
it's
looking.
exciting.
Yes, it is, because I was looking at your website and I was thinking, oh, wow, she's got all these different little niches in here that you can plug into. So I want to be sure and put all that at the end so they can know how to connect with you and in more depth, just the boxes going out. I love that too. Coaching is so valuable. I mean, I'm in coaching full time. You got to have it. I mean, I never realized how important it was to have that in my life. 61, and it took a while for me to figure all that out, but it's been wonderful. It's taught me, you know, it has definitely taught me to move forward and to see that dreams are possible. So, Jen, I just want to say that I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story. Again, I want to put all the information so that they can contact you about these boxes and about all the other opportunities that you have in your programs. And is there any other thing that you want to share with us as before we sign off today?
I just want to encourage everybody to just check in with yourself and check in with those that you love,
Yeah.
One thing I know for sure is that we got to take care of ourselves better so that we can take care of others. I think especially as women, we'll tend to want to take care of others before ourselves.
Yes.
It's hard to do that and sustain that when you're not putting yourself first. And it's one of the greatest gifts I've learned that you can give to others is actually self-care to yourself. So, that's our tagline, actually, and inspired you inspires others. So that's really my wish for all of your listeners is to just carve out time, do a check-in with yourself, see how you're doing. I've noticed, it's been years now since that, since that initial experience when I sat down and rated myself on the joy and the 6 areas of life, but I do it now frequently, about twice a year, because I find as life changes, my results, like my scores.
It's different seasons in your life. And I think that's so important. We think, well, okay, we've done it one time. No, we need to continue. Check in with yourself. I love that. And I need to do that more often, but I do find that I'll just write things down in my calendar every day, something, just to know that I'm inspired and that is joy. It brought me joy. So write it down, and so you can remember it and you can look back. But it's just been such a pleasure. I just love you to pieces. I love what you're doing. Your son, what a cutie pie. I think he likes to cook, doesn't he? I love watching all these little videos.
Oh, did you see the reels?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So can I just tell you?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Talk about being a light in someone's life. My sister, Leslie, is the most incredible aunt. I was originally born and raised in Canada. She still lives in Canada.
Aww.
And she has created such an amazing way to connect with my son and stay connected from a distance. And she does these baking activities. And so they're always saying, well, what kind of activity can we do next? So sometimes it's superheroes, and then it's bugs, and then it's,
so fun.
It's so fun, and she'll get dressed up, and he'll get dressed up, and they'll do this whole baking activity over FaceTime, and it's become just some of our most cherished memories.
He will never.
That was the other thing.
He'll never forget that. He'll never forget that. That is so impactful.
No.
Oh, I love it.
It's wonder, and she'll send little notes. So she'll send a box with some of the ingredients that are going to go in it, and then a letter that has like stickers all over it and everything. Shout out to Auntie Leslie.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love it. And aunts are known to be, such connections with aunts, right? I love connecting. I have some very memorable moments with my aunts as well, but that is so cool because he won't. How old is he now?
He's 8.
8. Oh my goodness. I love seeing kids cook. I just love it. I think it's so fun. I FaceTime. I have a great grandson and I get to FaceTime him, and that's how we stay connected too. Thank goodness for technology. Because he doesn't live near me. And so he shows me his new apartment. They just moved in, and he gets to show me all these things, and he's so cute. He's only 2, but he's just so proud, so it's so fun.
I love it. 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 Yeah. It brings my heart so much joy. It's one of my favorite things. I love that you saw those and you commented on that. Thank you.
Yes. It's so sweet. I'm a grandma, so it just connected with me so quickly to see him having so much fun doing what he was doing. But again, I always hate having to say goodbye because it's so hard because there's so many things, but we'll connect again. I just love following you. I know people already that need these boxes and want to send to. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm so glad we connected.
I am too. Thank you for joining my podcast today. We all have a story to share. Each story has purpose and makes an impact to you, the listener, creating a journey with passion and purpose. The journey we're taking is the journey within you. Please share with others and subscribe below.